Howdy folks, welcome back. Over the last 3 or 4 videos, I've been using pictures that remind us very much of what Earth looks like, particularly the southwest part of the United States with all these large buttes and ridges or hills, whatever you want to call them. And they look familiar to us because they must have gone through the same geological processes that happen here on Earth, for the most part. When we're talking about weather, obviously there's a big difference. As far as we know, there's only wind on Mars. On Earth, we have rain and wind and snow and ice and so on and so forth. And so these buttes are the result of apparently millions of years of erosion. And you look at these buttes in the American Southwest, and the thing to think about is the tops of all these buttes, the very tops, if you could draw a string from one to the other, that was the land up there. And so the land is eroded away down the sides and left these tall standing buttes in its place. Now, that's exactly what it looks like on Mars. And that would be easy to accept, but there's the issue of what is sticking out of the sides of these buttes and these hillsides. If we were looking at pictures of Earth and we saw things that were down towards the bottom of these buttes, we would have to say that, well, those things were put there a very, very long time ago, maybe millions of years ago, and over time they've eroded down and started to expose these things. And the thing is, that's really what we're seeing on Mars, right? It's the same thing. They have these buttes that over time have eventually eroded out, or I guess erosion is the right word for it, and left us some of these strange looking rocks and all this debris coming down off the buttes and so on. But we have all this stuff sticking out of the sides and the middles of these buttes. So what does that mean? So if we were to connect the tops of these buttes in these videos, we could say that at one time that was the land surface up towards the top, and then over time they've eroded down and left these piles on the sides of these buttes, and this is all debris that was presumably at one point up to the level of the top of these buttes, right? I hope I'm trying to be clear. I was trying to find a way to explain this, and I hope that does it. But and it's even hard to think about on Earth, if what was up on the top is now on the bottom. But that's what we have here. The problem here on Mars with these pictures is that when these buttes have eroded down, it's all junk. It's all stuff that was inside the buttes. In other words, if these buttes are 500 feet tall and they have all this eroded material down on the ground, well, that stuff on the ground used to be part of the buttes, right? But how could it be that when you have these buttes or these hills with all of this material sticking out the sides of them, how could it be that it was stacked up so thickly? It's almost as if there was 500 feet thick of various types of civilization, and it's all eroding down and leaving junk on the ground, like these things that we're looking at here. And yes, there is some sand, and I guess the sand blows in, but it does leave everything that's on the ground in these cases is part of something. So I really have a hard time wrapping my mind around how we could have ground that is 500, 600, 800 feet tall, and it's all made up of all of this man-made material. So how old is it? I mean, if these buttes in the United States have taken millions of years to erode, then these must have taken millions of years as well. Or more, because they don't have the rain that we have, or the, all of the forces that cause this stuff to erode down. So how do you get all this stuff? I mean, how do you have an area that's hundreds and hundreds of feet thick of man-made material that have over time eroded down? How do you get that? I mean, this is a real mystery to me. I can't even imagine a way that this would happen. Maybe millions of years of existence, and they just keep piling up on top of each other, and then eventually it all gets, there's a war, and then they all die, and then it erodes down. I don't know. And by the way, just for the record, these pictures, I want to remind you, are in Gale Crater. This doesn't mean the rest of the planet is like this. We've seen whole intact cities. Maybe this is a place to go visit for something interesting to look at, but there are cities on Mars. So here's an example. This is down towards the bottom. Now this is stuff coming out the side of the hillsides, and it's technology, whether it's mechanical technology, just the metal itself is the technology. I mean, that's all you need to see is just the metal, and that'll tell you right there. Here's a bunch of stuff, and right in the middle, just right of center, is your classic I-beam. I mean, if that is not an I-beam, what is? Right in the middle there. It's interesting how things that go together on Mars are the same way that they go together on Earth. They use all of the same type of principles that we do. And then you find these strange things on the rocks. It's just like what we see in the American Southwest. Did they erode down that way? I don't know. I suppose they did. Some of these things are really crazy. So I understand seeing all of this devastation and wreckage on the surface, on the tops of these buttes, but it's really hard to figure out how this type of thing came to be hundreds of feet thick and then to eventually erode out. So this stuff has to have been here for many millions of years, in my opinion. And when you look at some of this technology that we've seen in the previous videos, to think that this is stuff that's millions of years old, and I'll just say, I'll get crazy and say just 1 million years old. What do they have now? I can't even imagine. I don't think any of us can. So these buttes with all this technology on top is just something to wet our tongues, because we now know that this type of debris is throughout the middle of these buttes, and this has to be many millions of years old. Here's a bunch of debris on the ground, various types of things. You can see all the texture. It's obviously not natural, and all of that stuff on the ground doesn't match anything on the top of this butte or anywhere else in the picture. So maybe it was sitting on top and it eventually came down. It's really hard to understand, and I guess it's one of those things I'm going to keep looking at over time, but until you can get in there and dig a few holes and kick a few tires, it's hard to tell by looking at pictures that are zoomed in from a distance. A couple things on the surface there, and this is way back in the background, way back there, and this stuff goes on for miles and miles and miles. Here's something really huge here in the background. Can you see it? Coming in from the 9 o'clock and stretching out almost to the 3 o'clock. It has a point on one end of it. It's something. I don't know what it is. It's not rocks. And then in and amongst all of this debris and all of this wreckage and erosion and all of this stuff, we have these drones. And they're plentiful. And in fact, I have several pictures that show these things. And it's always the same. They're evenly spaced out most of the time. And frequently you'll find one kidney-shaped drone accompanied by a little round drone, always in the 8 o'clock position, every single time. And all of these peanut-shaped drones are always oriented in the same direction as well. I find that to be really amazing that these things are all over the place and they're all oriented exactly the same. So I could show you picture after picture after picture. You'd think they're all the same. You might think it's all the same pictures. But it's because of the fact that those little round drones are oriented in the 8 o'clock position and the exact same distance away from the peanut-shaped drone. And in fact, on some of the previous videos, we've seen a little bit of a variance in the shape of these things. But without a doubt, they are very prominent. I mean, they are really literally everywhere. So are these the eyes and the ears of the people that live on Mars? Are they weaponized? You know, what the heck are these things? And why are there so many of them? There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. I'm not going to count them all, and I'm not going to show them all to you. Here's some that are kind of in the distance. Anyway, so here we go again. There's another peanut-shaped one and another little round one at the 8 o'clock position. You know, who knows? You know, I'd like to say, well, are they weaponized? Are they this? Are they that? Who the heck knows? Nobody knows. And the only thing I can think of is they must be ever vigilant and in watching what's going on. And do they need to watch because there's some sort of a conflict going on up there? I don't know. And this is the only picture that I've seen with an actual black triangular shaped drone. I guess it's a drone. Anyway, thanks for watching, folks. We have an amazing video coming after this one. See you soon. Bye-bye.